Now quickly we're going to see the comparison between the myotatic reflex and the myotatic inverse reflex or stretch or muscle stretch inverse reflex. Alright. So we have the spinal cord, posterior horns, anterior horns, anterior horns, posterior horns. Alright. Here we have a muscle. First, the muscle stretch reflex. We have the type 1A fibers and type 2 fibers that are with a annulus parallel ending on the intrafusal fibers. They are responding to the stretch. So we stretch the muscle. This is transmitted to the body of the neuron that is on the dorsal root ganglion, then goes to the anterior horns and synapse on the lower motor neuron that goes to this muscle and contracts that muscle, and in a interneuron, this interneuron synapse with another lower motor neuron that goes to the antagonist muscle and relaxes that muscle. And this would be fibers A alpha type 1A, but here we're talking about a lower motor neuron, alpha lower motor neuron. Now the Golgi stretch reflex or the inverse stretch reflex. Now we're talking about the tendon. So in the tendon or the neurotendinous spindles, this is the Golgi organ tendon and is sensed by type 1B fibers. The body is also on the dorsal root ganglion, but now it's going to synapse on in this other lower motor neuron, in this interneuron, and this interneuron synapse with this lower motor neuron, and this lower motor neuron that goes to this same muscle now would be not releasing acetylcholine to this muscle, and so this muscle would be relaxed. So the muscle that we contract is now relaxing. This is kind of protective. We saw the example when we are lifting weights, and so the comparison is in a muscle stretch reflex. The muscle that is stretched is now activated or contracted. That is the response. In a Golgi organ tendon reflex, the muscle that is activated is now relaxed. Now the reflex of the flexion withdrawal is, for example, we are stepping in something sharp, in a sharp object. So we will lift up let's say the right foot with which we step on that sharp object. So for that we need contraction of a type of muscles and relaxation of another type of muscles. But here we also have involvement of the other leg. The other leg will be with the one that we will stand up. So that leg now, some muscle would be contracted and some muscle would be relaxed. The opposite to which the first leg, with the one that we step off, the sharp thing were activated. That's a other reflex, kind of similar to the Golgi organ tendon. Now, other thing is that when we have influence of upper motor neurons on gamma lower motor neurons. Gamma lower motor neurons innervate these intrafusal fibers, and the intrafusal fibers, when are innervated by this gamma motor neuron, they contract, they stretch, and when they stretch, is sensed by type 1A fibers, type 2 fibers, and depending if it is active or inactive. If it is active, then we transmit the reflex. So a damage to a upper motor neuron will produce a increase in this reflex or hyperreflexia, and damage also will produce a clasp knife spasticity. The terms of spasticity versus rigidity, we will talk them on other video, but here, due to the Golgi organ tendon, when we damage the upper lower motor neuron, we have this increased spasticity, and this is because we are overactivating the Golgi organ tendon. this spasticity is when we try to move the muscle, we have resistance. Now the resistance is increasing as we increase the velocity, etc. And as more we try, more spasticity we have until a point that then we drop out. So let's say that we are trying to extend the muscle. So we are extending a muscle. For do this, we need to relax a muscle and contract other muscle in order to have this action. So the Golgi organ tendon is doing the opposite thing. The muscle that we are trying to contract, that is these extensor muscles, the extensor muscle of the arm would be the triceps. So we are trying to contract the triceps muscle. And the Golgi organ tendon is doing the opposite thing. When we are trying to contract it, then we would have a reflex that would be relaxation of the muscle. So the patient is trying to extend the arm and cannot do it because of this clasp knife spasticity until a time in which the patient is putting a lot of force and then the arm drops out. So this is clasp knife rigidity due to overactivation of organ Golgi tendon in damage to the upper lower motor neuron, and we will talk about this difference in other video.